Welcome to Retail on the Go, where we explore the dynamic world of self-service commerce. Presented by Cantaloupe, helping the world buy it and go. Today, we're diving into the when, where, and why of micromarkets. Ready? Let's go.
Back to Retail on the Go, episode 2, Micro Market Marvels, Unraveling the Wonders of Micro Markets. Russ, I'm back here. We've got Kylan from last week. Max is off taking a break, but our guest today is going to be MJ. MJ, say hi to everybody.
What's up, everybody?
MJ is the original founder of the Yoke kiosk, which was acquired by Cantaloupe and is now the Cantaloupe Go Mini. He's one of our in-house kind of micro market experts, and we wanted to bring him on the show to really break down where micro markets came from, where they're at now, and kind of where they're going. So MJ, if you don't mind giving everybody just a quick brief bio on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I studied business management and finance at Arizona State, where I also built a sales organization of recruited, trained, and managed about 50 students in direct sales. And then after that, I moved to Los Angeles, California, where I've been ever since. And pretty soon after moving to LA, I was the co-founder and CEO of Yoke Payments, which is a point of sale, self-checkout point of sale system built specifically for micro markets. I was doing a little bit of research on the vending industry and came across this kind of brand new concept that I thought was really, really cool and was going to change the industry completely, but it was still kind of in its early days. And so I thought there was a lot of opportunity, and I thought there were a lot of holes in the way that they were approaching this concept. So I thought there was a lot of room to improve on it, and the rest is history. Started up a company, and now here, a few years later, was acquired by Cantaloupe, and now driving unattended retail solutions for Cantaloupe.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the quick bio. I think we should just jump right in. And the first question I have is, when did micro markets really start coming into the industry, and why do you think they kind of showed up in the industry, around that traditional vending space?
Yeah, so the earliest rumblings I can find of the micro market concept is back about 2008. But it didn't really truly start picking up steam, I don't think, until like 6 or 7 years after that, right around 2014, 2015. You were really starting to see it show its face at the trade shows and kind of became a real buzz, and actually had some buy-in and traction within the operator community. And then you fast forward to, now, and it's dominating the trade shows. It's kind of become operators' lead product. So it's been very interesting to see it kind of grow over the years. And I think there's a ton of reasons why it has been so successful and kind of took over so fast once the momentum got going. I think in the early days, there was a lot of fear of shrinkage, seeing that micro markets are kind of by definition a honor system. But once we kind of got past that, it really took off, and there's a number of reasons why. First and foremost, it's kind of super simple, but it was just different. I think this was just an industry that hadn't had a big innovation, a change of pace, something new in a really long time. And I think that was like the biggest driver. It was just exciting and new, something different for operators to pitch to these locations. And then there's a myriad of other benefits that we can get into. But first and foremost, just like there was an excitement born. It's like, wow, this is something really unique and cool, drives a ton of value for every party involved, which is also like, the win-win-win that we always look for. All parties came up on this. And if you want to dive into a few of those, I'm happy to.
Absolutely. And I mean, just right off the get-go, obviously you can have a bigger and better product mix, and you have more flexibility in what you can put in your in the markets themselves. But do you think that was like one of the big driving factors besides just being different? And how much of that do you think was driven from like the end consumer's perspective?
Yeah, so the point you made there is product mix. And first and foremost, the merchandising flexibility that comes with a micro market is like 100x of what you get in a vending machine. Different sizes, more SKUs, and you can start focusing on healthier products, salads, sandwiches, and wraps, things that typically you just wouldn't find in a vending machine. So that right off the bat just like changed the entire picture. This became something totally different. And I think that was enticing to all parties. I go back to that win-win concept, like end users who are sitting in the office, get on their break and can walk into a break room that has a really good product mix. Like, yeah, they're going to love that. That's really awesome. Healthy, happy employees, getting the products that they like and that they desire and not having to go off campus for that. So I think the employees were stoked. But the employers at the same time, massive benefits. You've got people actually hanging out in your break room, spending time there, building camaraderie. You got people spending less time off campus and more time on campus. People can get that quick fix, an energy drink, something that, on top of the coffee that they're getting just to keep them pushing through those afternoon hours when they're starting to get a little tired. So I think the employers were really happy. They also now could kind of differentiate themselves from everybody else. It's like, man, we've got this really cool office amenity that actually I think like help them just kind of be that leading edge, kind of forward thinking company that was doing cool stuff for their employees. So I think there was a lot of that. And then quickly operators realized that by switching to this concept, they were selling a lot more product. And again, it's higher tickets, people bundling things together instead of just buying one thing and walking away. They were buying entire meals, your sandwich, your snack, your drink, desserts, frozen food. So every stakeholder in this process, I think, was seeing the benefits of switching from vending to micro markets.
Awesome. And then just kind of on a wide note, I think that there's probably a misconception among most of the viewers and stuff, especially people that have never gotten into micro markets before, that they're just expensive. Like you got to buy the coolers, you got to buy the kiosks, you got to buy the fixtures, you got to buy this whole setup. And it's just super, super expensive when, we all in reality know that they're actually becoming more and more, cost effective. Affordable. Yeah. Affordable, kind of even cheaper than, vending machines themselves. Obviously you've been through the whole journey from when they first came out to when they didn't. But could you touch on just like the cost that's kind of in there from, the original kiosks in the beginning of micro markets and kind of where that cost has gone now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. And it's clearly the technology has gotten more affordable. It's gotten smaller over the years. But if you go back to those early days, the real focus where operators were putting these markets were in super large corporate campuses that were servicing, thousands of people. So the mindset and the kind of stigma was this, but, operators were putting in 10, 12, 15 coolers, 20, 30 feet of snack racking, 4 or 5 massive jukebox kiosks that were more expensive then than they are now. So you go back into those early days and of course on a per unit basis, it was a lot more expensive to install a micro market than it was a vending machine. But as we've started to put these into smaller locations and realizing that you can do this with one cooler, one shelving rack, and a small self-checkout kiosk or even a smartphone app, all of a sudden you realize like, whoa, this solution can be utilized at locations of any size. And once that happened, you started to see the lid blow off on where operators were putting them, the velocity of installs, micro markets versus vending machines. And I think you saw that stigma of, whoa, micro market expensive, vending machine cheap, kind of switch on its head. And you've started to see this almost become the lead product for vending operators everywhere.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think one of the questions that I kind of have for you is, would you say kind of on the retail side of things, what do you think are the big ticket selling items that you're seeing in like kind of the non ways in which you're starting to see some operators kind of branch out and put some of these newer markets, you would say?
Well, first and foremost, I think the entire sundries category was something that was more or less ignored. So you're talking, suntan lotion, toilet paper, deodorant, mints, you know, even like office supplies, something that they weren't thinking about before. Now you can put in phone chargers and just non-food items that you need to do your job. Advil, greeting cards. I think the operators realized like, whoa, we can go way beyond just food and beverage. And you do see a ton of success selling non-food items in the micro market space.
No, absolutely. And I think as you expand and you kind of move into more different areas other than just conventional, break rooms and stuff like that, apartments, gyms. I mean, bigger ticket items means more revenue in the pockets for everybody at stake. And I think that's huge.
I was just gonna say, you kind of alluded to something there too. I think in the early days, as an industry, we were hyper focused on B&I, business and industry, office break rooms. But as this concept has gained steam, you're starting to see it now move to apartment buildings, hotel lobbies, and other non-traditional, vending spaces. So there's a lot of opportunity to continue to expand this concept into those other verticals.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And a question that I would have is, vending operators have always just kind of been vending operators, right? They stock the snacks, they stock the beverages, and then go on about their day, collect the cash, and move on. Whereas now, especially as technology, not just within micro markets, but software, obviously we're Cantaloupe, so Seed Pro and things has turned them more into like merchandisers. I know with Yoke specifically, y'all were really kind of early on in some of the loyalty programs and things like that, where it's turned operators into more retailers. You know what I mean? Can you expand upon how that's kind of evolved and how operators have taken on that new role and kind of put on a different hat than just being the person that brings the food and beverage?
Yeah, 100%. You hit that on the head. They've gone from distributors to really retailers. And it comes with a lot of upside, a lot of opportunity, but it also comes with a lot of responsibility. And they have to think a different way than they did before and do things a different way. So the technology has really supported that and opened up the opportunity for these vending operators to start acting like retailers. That comes with, and I just think of it like this too, with a bank of vending machines, as a vending operator, I've got to hope that somebody, gets hungry right as they walk past that and says, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And I'll walk over and get that. When you open it up to technology, you bring in a direct line of communication to your customers. As a vending operator in the past, you had one customer. It was the office manager, the HR manager, the building manager, whoever was your one point of contact at that location. And that was kind of who you interacted with. What micro markets did was made every single employee that shops or works at that location become the vending operator's customer. So you open up a direct line of communication. You open up things like deals and promotions where we can start driving consumer behaviors and actually influencing people to make decisions before they're standing in front of your point of sale. You bring in things like loyalty and reward programs. So you gamify the situation, you incent people who come back and buy often. You give people rewards for being repeat customers. So a lot of other, neat stuff too, like even opening up support channels. All of a sudden, like in the past, if the vending machine, if everything was sold out, you might call the number on the side and say, hey, you guys need to drop off some more food. Now with the technology, you can submit tickets. Hey, I'd like to see this product. This thing isn't functioning properly. So you're able to put out fires before they even start and provide just a much higher level of customer service and increase customer satisfaction and make people feel heard and actually be able to get that feedback from your actual customers and bring in products that they actually want to see on the shelves and that will sell through faster and drive revenues and increase how fast you're servicing locations. So the technology has, and the concept alone has really kind of supported this shift from distributors dropping off food to retailers engaging with customers, listening, creating promotions and deals and programs to drive consumer behaviors that didn't exist before. So it's pretty cool. It's just been a big shift on how our industry acts and thinks, and what kind of control they have over their own destiny and really driving decisions.
I really feel like it ultimately kind of leads to an experience for kind of the customer, the location. It really does just kind of enhance that overall experience of, going up and getting to touch the fancy, screen and being able to scan your product. It kind of is a more enjoyable experience, which drives people back. I think you hit it right on the head, MJ, with those points.
I mean, you're spot on there. And, I love vending machines as much as the next guy, but there is this stigma that I walk up, I got to flatten out my dollar bill, and, the coin gets in there, you got to shake it and things fall out. And obviously we've come a long way with cashless technology, and, there's really fancy vending machines out there now, but I think that's kind of been embedded in people, the way they think about it when you hear vending machine. And to walk into your corporate break room and have it really feel like a fancy, high amenity retail store is a completely different vibe. And I think employees appreciate it. I think employers appreciate it. It's something cool that they can show off. And it really creates that kind of forward thinking mentality. And this is a great place to be. And people love coming to work here. And, we're those Facebook, Google type, even if you don't have the Facebook, Google budget, you can kind of show off hey man, we're with the times, we're doing cool stuff, we care about our employees, and we really care about creating experiences. And it's undeniable. You walk into a break room that has a micro market, it feels a lot better than a bank of vending machines.
Yeah, two things that I would say there. One, the way that I always put it is, there's the stigma, stereotype you said about a vending machine, right? People, no matter what the product is, a lot of people just assume anything in a vending machine is quote unquote cheap, right? When you can take that same product, put it in a micro market, charge $1.50 more for it, and no one bats an eye. And the way that I think of it is when I go into the gas station, I'm getting gas, I go into the gas station, I want to go grab a drink. It's the same drink I grab every time I go in, and I open the cooler door and I grab it and I look at it for a second and I read the label because I've read it a million times. I don't know why, but I can still touch it. It's that tangible aspect. That's where I feel like it increases sales too, is because people can see it, they can touch it and feel it. You can't touch inside a vending machine. And the other thing is, there's a reason that they put gum and beef jerky and sunflower seeds at the checkouts at Target and Walmart and everywhere, is because it's that impulse purchase, right? Where, on a vending machine, you buy a drink, you buy a drink. Whereas with a micro market, you grab a sandwich and you grab a drink, and then you're going over to the checkout, and then all of a sudden there's a Snickers bar just hanging above the kiosk, and you're like, oh, why not? And you grab it, you scan it, and you buy it. And it's a better experience, but it's obviously a better revenue driver for operators. And that's how I kind of compare the two. But one other thing that I want to jump back into on technology, we talked about technology. We talked about kind of the customer experience that Kylan brought up. I think another one, thing to touch in is the technology that the employers have to be able to, incentivize employees, not just with the big fancy micro market, but with subsidies. So, maybe they give $10 every month to each employee as just like a incentive. Or, my wife's a nurse. So, nurses in California, of all places, they have to be provided meals by the place of some sort. So declining balances and being able to manage that from an employer's perspective. And okay, we'll give $11 to each employee on their badge for every 24-hour period. And if they don't use it, then I don't get invoiced for it. So it actually saves them money in the long run too. So I think it's just interesting to see how the technology can adapt to employee incentives and management programs as well. Like I said, I just want to touch on that. And we did touch a little bit about how micro markets are going into unique places, non-traditional break rooms, residential apartments, gyms, things like that. MJ, is there what's the maybe not the weird, the most unique, call it that, the most unique location you've ever seen someone put a micro market?
I mean, I was blown away the first time I saw they were going into malls. Literally renting a store in a mall, and it was just a micro market, unattended. Come in, get your stuff, and go. It takes a lot of faith, you would think, to think that would work in that high traffic, non-closed loop environment, and they've had success with that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And now you're kind of starting to see them even in airports. You're seeing self-checkout in airports, but I'm actually seeing micro markets completely unattended, kiosks and right in the airports, right down the main walkways. So It's cool. You're starting to see them pop up in more untraditional places, and I think especially as on some locations where the workforce is getting more challenging, it's a lot more expensive. You're starting to see people see the value in having unattended solutions, even in places where we didn't think we would see them before.
Oh,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
mean, oh,
I
go
was
ahead,
going to
Colin.
mention
Sorry.
one of the spots that kind of popped up in my head was in college campuses. So, I went to the University of Arizona. I played football, and one of the things is we had an area in which was completely unattended. You needed a CAT card, which was our version of a student ID to scan in to get into this one particular room. And there was all these cameras up, and it was basically a full-fledged mini market, like basically like a convenience store setup, racks and shelves of items, toilet paper, some of the big ticket items you had talked about, some Tide Pods if you need to do some laundry, and guys would go in there, scan their products, and they would leave. And just the fact that it was unattended, the fact that you just needed a simple student ID to get in there and kind of scan your products and go. I know that made a lot of money, and I think that's a huge space in which you're starting to see more and more as on college campuses as well. Kind of bringing once again that market idea, bringing the solutions, to the people where they're located. And this was a place that was probably maybe like a 2 or 3 minute walk from the dorms, which was pretty helpful if you're, a dorm college student kid, trying to heat up some popcorn for a movie night or whatever the case is, those long study hours, you need a rock. So just being able to go down there and get yourself an energy drink or whatever the case it was. So that's definitely beneficial.
Yeah, it's a great point. And it actually ties back into something that Russ was talking about a couple minutes ago about connecting the employers, or in that case, the colleges, and kind of getting everybody on the same page. And so in the workplace setting, tying into payroll deduct options, or in this case, it's campus cards where you're tying into a payment mechanism where previously vending operators would have really no chance to earn in that revenue that's coming from a preloaded card, where the parents or the institution is given, students this amount of money to spend, and it's got to be spent on campus. And there's really wonderful checks and balances on that. But being able to tie into those payment options brings this entire pie of revenue that was previously off the table, it allows them to participate in it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of reminds me in Arizona. So we used to have we would have once again our campus card, and it'd be preloaded with money. All athletes were given a allotted amount of money to go spend on food and different things like that on campus. And once again, you have that option to go spend that money because it's going to be there. It's uploaded at the end of the month. It's not going anywhere. And I think that's a huge untapped market that I think is starting to definitely get taken on. So that's great.
Like the payroll deduction and declining balance and things. If the free money is there, people are going to spend it. You're right. Y'all didn't leave $30 a month on that card, Kylan. I'm sure. Y'all took it down
Not at
to the
all.
penny as close as you could.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And one thing I wanted to come back to, MJ, we were talking about unique places, but you also kind of started talking about like the labor. Is there where places? We've already seen it obviously at fast food, McDonald's, and places, Walmart, Target, the big box stores. Whether you like them or don't like them, self checkouts are here and they're here to stay. When I was thinking of one of the most unique locations that I've seen a micro market put in, it actually kind of fulfills both categories, right? So it was an exchange store on a military base, and because of labor, they only ran like 4 or 6 hours a day that they had it open. And then they talked to the vending operator. The vending operator came in and they renovated the entire store and took it to fully unattended. Had a couple different kiosks in there. Now it's open 24/7. There's no person there, and I think more than quadrupled their monthly revenue. And so not only was it taking an exchange store and turning it into a fully unattended space, but now it's a 24/7 exchange store, not a few hours a day because of the labor. Now they don't have to worry about the labor, and it made more money too. But just another unique instance, kind of like you said, like turning in a store and a mall into a mini market. I think we're just gonna be curious to see how crazy these get down the road, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I mean, another question that I think we talked about on the first episode, me, Max, and Kylan was someone their first time, right? First time getting into a micro market and the challenges of that and what they're going to look at. I think one big question is, how do I do it, right? And we find, or at least we've found that a lot of operators' first market is because they've got a vending location that's like, we want a market, and if you don't give us a market, we're going to find another operator. And so, we don't want that to be the case, but we've seen that. I think that also brings in the question to a lot of operators have is it going to replace my vending? Does it have to have vending for me to take a market, or should I find micro market places that don't even have vending so far, which it might be hard to find? Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, is it going to fully replace vending? Is there always going to be a place for vending machines at some point? What do you think there, MJ?
Yeah, I don't foresee it fully replacing vending. I think there's plenty of places where vending makes tons of sense and is the right choice. In general, I think you're going to see unattended continue to eat into attended, whatever that format is. But I definitely don't think it's going to replace vending. However, I think there are, for the right locations, the upside of going with a micro market concept over vending is massive. And like I said, it's a win-win-win. I think in the right locations, it is the right choice and should be pushed first. And then if for some reason it doesn't work out or the location isn't hip to it, then you can always fall back into vending. But I think in general, markets, the technology becoming more affordable, the acceptance of it, payments are generational, and as the workforce gets younger and younger and more millennial and now even Gen Z, you're going to see those generations enjoy and like unattended. They doing everything from their phone these days. So if I can load money, see what I want, buy it, and go pick it up, they crave those types of interactions. And I mean, look, we've seen this happen over the course of history. Innovations replace jobs that are become what's the word I'm looking for? Antiquated. But those jobs transform. They go into something else. So, maybe at some day down the line, that standard cashier position might be less and less of those. But you're going to see those people be repurposed to look over 6 self-checkout terminals and provide a bespoke experience and help upsell and interact with customers and create a more luxury bespoke experience. So I just think it's a shift, and you're going to see these people be repurposed and do something that adds more value to the entire ecosystem than just scanning goods and collecting cash.
And I can kind of give you an example of that. So one of the accounts or one of the locations that we were kind of working on was an actual stadium. So a stadium that was built, they're up in the Midwest. It's a hockey arena. And one of the things we were working on was basically kind of ditching the aspect of, think when you're at a large sporting event, right? You want to buy a hot dog, you want to buy a hamburger, you're standing in line waiting, 15 people deep just to get to the line to place your order. Okay, you place your order. Then they have a cook back there who prepares the food, brings it out, and then you can grab your item. But you got 15 people ahead of you. We actually worked on a project in which we were able to kind of ditch that whole process of someone taking your order. And what we did was repurpose it by putting kiosks out with food items. So having about 6 different kiosks in which people can walk up to. Because think about it, if it's halftime of a big sporting game, people are walking up, they want to use the bathroom, they want to get a quick bite to eat before the game resumes. So being able to go purchase your items from a kiosk, and then with that elimination of someone up front taking orders, you now have those funds to transform, like you said, into a better place. So one of the examples was they took those 2 cashiers and turned them into 2 more chefs, so they can hopefully double the production of amount of food that they're producing during a halftime, so that way people are getting their food quicker, and just different things like that. So it kind of just, once again, eliminating kind of that game of telephone and just making it more streamlined, so it goes straight from what I want straight to the chef, straight to you getting your food, and just keeping it as simple as that. So I think that's super beneficial.
Yeah, it's great. And
Yeah,
then,
go ahead, MJ.
I was just gonna say, to your point too, before about is vending obsolete? I think one cool thing that the technology is allowing is for customers to kind of sign up for an account one time, and they can pass between vending machines, micro markets. You're even seeing you be able to take those rewards and spend them completely off campus at other merchants, merchants sponsored deals. So as the technology gets more robust, I think ultimately we're creating a much better user experience, and it'll be able to be used across all the different points of sale. So I don't think we're going to like alienate vending machines. I think there will always be a place for them, and it'll be really cool when you can pass between all those different points of sale and different shopping experiences and kind of have it all be one seamless user experience that you expect and know that your loyalty is going to transcend across different platforms. So I think that's going to help keep vending machines relevant as well.
Yeah, you can already buy like Apple products out of a vending machine. You can buy pharmaceuticals for CVS out of a vending machine. So what's next? But I think we probably have time for like two more questions. So one that last one on the technology that I wanted to jump back to is Cantaloupe. Obviously, we originally were credit card devices on vending machines, and obviously we've evolved a long ways. But cashless payments is what we do. You kind of touched on it earlier about the generations, right? As the workforce gets younger, and obviously we get to see the statistics. The increase in cashless payments. I have operators ask me a lot. Well, do you think my kiosk needs to take cash? Does it not? Can I go completely cashless? And I think it's probably each location is slightly different. But do you have any take on that, or what you see in terms of the cash versus cashless capabilities for kiosks to have?
Yeah, so I do have a take on it. I mean, when we created Yoke back in 2013, 2014, our first idea was like, who needs a kiosk at all? This should be a phone. Like everybody's got a kiosk in their back pocket. And we were probably a little bit bleeding edge at that time. I don't think the market was quite ready to ditch kiosks and cash altogether. And some of that stems from it just being indoctrinated over years. Vending has traditionally just been a cash latent business. But we're seeing that shift for sure in vending and obviously at micro markets. But then even our early kiosks were fully cashless, and we were coming at it and approaching it from a fresh mindset. We didn't have all the preconceived notions that came with being legacy vending folks. We were kind of a technology company coming to a new industry, and we kind of took it on the chin a little bit because there was a lot of pushback in those early days. We need cash. We're not ready to go fully cashless, and eventually we ended up putting a cash box on our kiosk. So I think, like you said, it depends on the location. Certain locations, there's higher percentage cash usage. Sometimes it's just like the politics of a location, not wanting to alienate anybody. And I've always been a firm believer, like, man, if somebody wants to pay with a form of payment, it's easy enough to be there and be able to do it. So I think a lot of times we offer the cash component just as like hey, don't want to alienate anybody. But we're seeing mobile payments, cashless payments just continue to skyrocket as a percentage of the payments happening in our industry. I think that's only going in one direction. And I think a lot of the need for cash is probably a little more based on that desire to not alienate folks than like, almost everybody has the ability at this point to pay with a cashless form of payment. So who knows? We'll see. There may be a time when cash is completely a thing of the past. There may be a time when, we move back towards cash for some reason that we don't know yet. But at the end of the day, I think from a technology standpoint, we're doing right by providing every way somebody wants to buy. And if somebody walks up to one of our points of sale and they've got a payment mechanism they want to use and they can't, we're probably failing our merchants and those end users by not supporting it.
Nice. I was just curious what your take on the whole cash versus cashless thing was. And as we start to kind of wrap up, we talked.
Just real quick, I think there's a ton of advantages to bringing cash out of your business as an operator. Accountability, theft internally, cash collection. It's a whole bunch of steps that you get to pull out of this ecosystem and become more efficient. So, I've always been a firm believer of you don't need it, get it out. And once it's gone, people don't miss it. And there's a lot of advantages to not having it, but again, sometimes you got to do what the location requires.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, it's kind of, once again, it is up to the location. And, if it was up to me, I would say go cashless. I mean, I watch all these different types of young kids walk around. They use their Apple Watch, they'll scan, they'll do tap to pay, do all these different ways of paying, in which, don't involve carrying cash. But, for certain locations, you might run into maybe where there's more blue collar work or wherever the case is, where there tends to be more cash driven businesses where people tend to have more cash on them. So I think it kind of just depends exactly what that location requires. But like I said, there's pros and cons to everything, but I think we are starting to move more towards just a more cashless society.
I think the last stat I saw was that the cashless transaction is on average 60% higher than a cash transaction. So, and that's the whole bundle and save, buying more items together. And also just people, it just doesn't feel like you're parting ways with your hard-earned cash when it's just numbers on a screen. So,
Yeah.
It's another major advantage of pushing cashless is 60% boost.
I know for me, I forget my wallet half the time because I just use Apple Pay on my phone. It's too easy to spend money nowadays. Let's be honest. But as we kind of wrap up, we started off with you and we talked about like kind of where micro markets came from and where we're at now. So it just seems and feels right to finish with where do you see the future of micro markets? I know obviously you have a little bit of biasness because you're working on a project here at Cantaloupe, with some new technology that you can touch on a little bit, but where do you see, we're not going to hold your feet to the fire. We're not going to hold you to this prediction, MJ, but where do you see the future of micro markets going?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a multifaceted question. And one of the biggest reasons when I first started Yoke Payments, one of the biggest reasons I was excited to get into the micro market space was because I was a firm believer in self-checkout being the future of payments and mobile payments and cashless. So there was a number of things that we were maybe a little bit too far ahead of the curve and bleeding edge, but by definition, micro markets were an industry that was ready for self-checkout. It was how they function. So we really dove into micro markets as a way to become experts in self-checkout. So the technologies that we've been perfecting since, the early 2010s is now something that you're starting to see in these other locations, retail, quick service restaurants, McDonald's for that matter, right? So the goal there was, let's become the experts of self-checkout in this industry that's by definition ready for it. And then when the rest of the world catches up, we'll be the experts. So you're starting clearly to see the technology that supports and drives the micro market industry be used elsewhere. You're seeing self-checkout kiosks, mobile payments in traditional retail stores. So I think you're only going to continue to see that grow. And then you alluded to kind of another product that we're working on right now, which is a smart cooler. We're calling it the Cantaloupe Smart Cafe. It's driven by computer vision cameras. And the user experience is you just walk up, you pre-authorize your card, and it unlocks the door and allows you to touch and feel the products. But as you take those products out of that cooler, it automatically, the cameras pick it up and add it to the shopping cart. Once you got everything you want, you shut the door and it dings your card for what you have. So it's almost like a hybrid between vending and micro markets. You get all the benefits of a micro market, larger products, more product mix, more SKUs, touch it and feel it, but you kind of reduce that honor system shrink factor of the micro market concept. So it's kind of the blending of these, and I think that's going to blow the lid on where you see these go. These can go into far less closed loop environments. They could go on the street corner, much more transient, high traffic locations. And look, in general, like, you see Amazon Go stores, and those are great, and I think it's really cool and fancy, but it's really expensive technology. It's very limited to where you can put them. But like anything, technology is going to get more affordable. It's going to get more robust. So you're just going to continue to see innovative ways to attack the retail market and engage with customers and provide better experiences that those customers are interested in and want and demand. And so I think you're just going to continue to see new ways, unique ways, and new verticals, new places where this technology goes. And the better it gets and the more affordable it gets, the more adoption you're going to see, and the more expansion and you're going to see.
Awesome. Well, MJ, thank you for your time, man. We always love hanging out and chatting with you. Glad we're actually able to have you on the show and get your insight and all the little nuggets of your knowledge, since you've been at this longer than we have, and you've gotten to be in the trenches, starting your own kiosk and payments company. So we love always having you on the team, but love to have you on the show. And until next time. But to our operators, listeners, and viewers, that's all the time we have for today. But we thanks again for you joining us on this episode of Retail on the Go. And before we sign off, as always, be sure to follow us, subscribe to us for the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Retail on the Go. And next episode, join us for the next one where we talk micro markets and cold brew service, cold brew kegerator machines with Quinn Miller and the owner of the kegerator vending machine, O'Neill. But until next time, this is Retail on the Go, signing off.